and we are joined now by Yogi Roth. He is a football analyst, and he is a contributor to Big Ten Network. Yogi, how are you this morning?
I'm doing great. How are you guys?
Yogi, that's pretty cool for me. Normally when I'm talking to you in my former life, it's Pac-12 heavy, but now we get to double dip because apparently Pac-10 moved east. Pac-12 moved east. I don't know if you got the memo. How you been?
Brother, of all people who got the memo, I promise you, I got the memo. We all got the memo. It was a different kind of memo. It was a pink slip of sorts. So, yeah, I'm really happy to be with you guys. Honored to be at the Big Ten Network and talk to you guys and still be able to have conversations with those on the West Coast. I got a new podcast called Y Option.
Yeah.
Pete Carroll coming out later today that I have a feeling will probably get pretty get a decent amount of attention. So check that out when it comes out in an hour or two. But overall, I'm just stoked. It's game week. I'm heading to Oregon. So part of it feels like old hat, like usually have their opener. But then in week 3, I'm going to Nebraska and Northern Iowa, and then away we go east. So I'm looking forward to it. I got to see, I think, 12 teams in August in training camp.
Yeah.
And it was awesome, man. Like a little extra travel, of course, but two leagues have emerged. Sadly, or if you're excited, either way, like it's reality. I'm looking forward to it. I'm optimistic about it. And I can't wait to see some of these venues.
Yeah, it's so cool because, we're trying to set our lineup for this week and we're like, oh, man, we wanted to preview SC a little bit. And we're like, West Coast. And I told Shane, I'm like, we got our guy. And now he's with the Big Ten Network, so we can double dip. But it is cool to see you, just peer-to-peer, to see professionally when you're on set with those guys. And I used to do those tours with them, and you're like the expert, I feel like. And they defer, and it's like, look at that. He's really, really good at this. I love seeing you, on the stage like that just because you've been so good at your craft for so long.
No, that means a lot. I mean, the coolest part of being at the Big Ten, honestly, has been the people.
Yeah.
You come into a new environment, to your point, and you're like, okay, am I going to be welcomed? Is it going to be, what's it going to be? And Dave Revson, Jerry DiNardo, Howard, all these people that
yeah.
Jake Butt,
yeah.
They've just been awesome, man. And I just think that, when you cut through all the cloudiness around our sport, the best thing is still the people. That's what I remember from
100%.
Yeah. Ted Robinson changed my life. So many people. Same thing I'm learning at the Big Ten. So that has been the best part of the tour. And they've allowed me an opportunity to speak. They put me on all those shows, and, it's a different grind, right? It's year one. But I'll tell you what, I was just telling a colleague yesterday, I feel like I know, I knew the Pac-12 team's 3 deep. That was the job. But now expanding to this new league, you just feel even more confident around the sport and the trends you've seen or the trends you might anticipate to happen this fall. So that's been really fun. And I'm just really thankful that they invited me in and welcomed me in, and Ashley Adamson, Guy Haberman, Rhett Lewis, our crew. Same deal. All of us, we kind of joke. We're like, we're Big Ten West. We all live out in California.
So here's the cool thing, because right? Obviously, the inside. Ravi and I, we left Indy, and we felt like, okay, if there was a guy that kind of took you by surprise by what he said, it was maybe Signetti. If there was a guy that was maybe going to be the instant villain, we thought it was Lincoln Riley. I loved the way that he was very honest and forthright, but I kind of felt like he was a little surly for Lincoln. You know him, you've listened to him. What were some of your takeaways as he kind of broaches this season in a new conference? It seems like he's got something to defend.
Yeah, well, I think like everybody in this profession, he's a competitor and an elite one. You look at the tree he's come from, his formative coaching years and playing career was, formed by Mike Leach, who would be one of the most quotable people, but if you ever spent time with him one-on-one, he was really an elite competitor. I think Lincoln is that. I think oftentimes in the media, you're speaking through the media to your team, to recruits. You're talking about opportunity. I think at USC, something he's told me about a week and a half ago, which really stood out was, you don't get a lot of these opportunities, so you can't miss it. And that's really how he's echoed it to his team and his staff of on one hand, you're like, he's on a 10-year deal. He's not going anywhere. But on the other hand, you don't ever get the 120 guys that are in this locker room right now together again in the same circumstance, right? There's new parts added. There's parts that leave. And he's on that note. And I love that concept of like, we can't miss it. Like, it is not guaranteed next year. And especially when you look at roster sizes next year and revenue sharing and all the things that are coming to play, like, this is a unique year. And then I'll say lastly for me, I've been on the train for SC for really since the spring. I did their spring game, and I keep calling it a foundational year. What do I mean by that? Well, the defense has completely reset. 90% of the staff has changed. The personnel, I think, has gotten either more mature and at certain places better, right? Some supplementation in the portal, especially in the back end of a secondary that I think really struggled last year. And then overall, like, I go to like second year players. So either sophomores like Deuce Robinson, Jacoby Lane, Zachariah Branch, they will be stars. Trust me, their receiving core is loaded. They get zero play, and I think they should be in the same conversation as Ohio State and Oregon as the best ones in America. And then I look at the second-year guys in the transfer portal. Anthony Lucas is a monster DN who went to A&M, now in his second year. Beryl Alexander transferred from Georgia as a nose tackle in his second year. I just think it gives them a shot. And then my last thing is, as I went around the landscape of 2/3 of the league, hey, defenses are really talented in the Big Ten, but they didn't face Caleb, Garbers, Penix, Nix. Like, I just think that the league is in for an awakening defensively when they get challenged by these 4 new teams and the quarterbacks. And Lincoln Riley's offense, I think, is going to score. So I wouldn't be shocked if they shock the world, especially the southeastern part of the world, and beat LSU this weekend. I really wouldn't, man. I don't think they'll win the whole thing, but they're in the top third of the Big Ten.
I am shocked nobody talks about Branch more, and I'm a little biased because he won our Jet Award, and I'm on that board. But he is incredibly electric, and he's as dangerous as anyone in the country once he has the ball. And I don't care how you get it to him.
Couldn't agree more, man. I mean, I called his first 2 games last year, and when he kind of took the nation by storm, just to punt returns, kick returns, etc. He just is different. You know, I've been to a million USC practices and watched the most gifted receivers in that program's illustrious history for the last 20 years, right? So from Marquise Lee, Robert Woods, Dwayne Jarrett, Steve Smith, on and on and on. He's like those guys. He just stands out. And then you think about who he's standing out against. And I believe it. They've got 4 or 5 receivers that would start everywhere in America, or at least contribute, right? They might not break the 3 deep at Ohio State or Oregon, but other than that, like, they are the number 1 receiver at a lot of places. And I just think they're gonna score. The spacing, the way that they utilize their offensive schematic. It's not like, again, it's not Leach's air raid. The air raid, I think, gets confused pretty regularly, and thinking it's 8 routes on a little piece of paper that you look at on the sideline like Leach did. But that's his version, and I love the guy. But it's a philosophy, not a scheme. So what does that mean? It's about taking advantage of space, right, and personnel.
Yeah.
And SC's got the personnel, and if you watch any of them, you watch them play at all, like the way their offensive line will move, the way that they'll move the pocket. And I think, for them this year, playing with Miller Moss at quarterback is going to, I think, allow them to have a really efficient season. So by that, imagine being a play caller and Caleb Williams is your quarterback and it's 1st and 10. Well, as you're anticipating a second down play with a little bit of tempo, you don't know if it's going to be 1st and goal because it was a scramble and a 50-yard explosive play, or 2nd and 19. I think it's going to help out the play caller a little bit now, being on rhythm with Miller Moss.
We're talking with Yogi Roth of the Big Ten Network. Yogi, there's something I've been thinking about lately a lot about Lincoln Riley and USC, and I haven't heard really anybody else talk about it. Does it matter in your mind, or do we talk enough about the fact that this is Lincoln Riley coming off the worst season of his career as a head football coach?
Well, I think it gets talked about a ton.
Oh, not around here.
You turn on your boy Feinbaum every once in a while, and
golly,
definitely
not my boy.
Actively avoid that one.
We're trying to ship him over to you guys.
Yeah, well, it's not personal. It was just a fact of what he did early December. I think that that is a dialogue that is regularly talked about, and I get it. I mean, that's what the SC seat is. It's a big chair. in the country, and that'll change dramatically if they win on Sunday, and people will be saying give him another 10-year extension. So that's just kind of the nature of the beast. I think everything he has been through, from a scrutiny standpoint, and an adversity standpoint in that regard, has I think weathered him to be able to navigate Los Angeles in this landscape, because it could be unforgiving and it could be the most glorious pat on the back of all time. And I think that's always the biggest challenge for players. People who don't live here, I think are sometimes intrigued. I don't know if you guys will be or not, but I call it internal expectations versus internal reality versus external expectations. So here's the example. You're a 4 or 5-star recruit in Southern California, and of course you go to USC, and you're primed to go contribute early and be the dude. Well, come week 3 of camp, maybe you haven't completely nailed the playbook. Maybe going to class and playing major college football against 22-year-old veterans is hard, right? It is hard. I think people forget that. So why do I say that? Is that sometimes when you walk in the building, that reality is, yeah, I'm still growing. I'm learning in a developmental sport at a developmental position. But externally, it's, hey, man, you're getting screwed by the staff. Hey, you need to be playing. Hey, you're the man. You're making X dollars in NIL. I mean, I tell players every day when I talk to the locker room, you're a transaction now. We have to compete to tell your story. If I say all that, of like when you're in LA, those two things rub against one another, right? Externally, you should be playing. Internally, you need to be learning. And I think when those two meet and that friction doesn't really allow you to maximize, let alone tap into your potential. And I don't think a lot of people think that way in LA. They just think, oh, LA gets all the best players and all the glitz and the glam. Well, there's another side to that has to be navigated. And Lincoln Riley is very aware. We've talked about it many times. And I think that's why he has a really mature team this year. That's why I reference the second-year players. Like, they got through the glad handing and hey, you're the man, or hey, you're getting hosed. Like, and they just got to the reality. And I think last season and the record that you alluded to helped get you there even faster, right? And that's just kind of how sports work. So I think this team comes out, and again, I don't see them as Oregon or Ohio State. Those two are different to me. Penn State defensively is unique this year, at least among the teams I saw in training camp. But SC is in the top third of this league, and that offense is going to be able to score against a lot of teams. And I think they're going to put themselves in a really healthy position to make some noise. And their schedule is pretty good. Like, I get they got to go to Michigan off the bat, but they don't leave the West Coast Pacific time zone. I think it's October 19th on through the rest of the season. Their only road games are at UW and at UCLA.
Yeah, listening to Yogi Roth, giving me the 2-on-1. That's the storytelling of the football analyst that's in the Twitter bio. That right there is beautiful. Let me get your thoughts on this here, Yogi, because I don't want to knock Dan Lanning, right? He's been fantastic. He's a heck of a recruiter. He lost the quarterback that set a record for starts. He's inheriting a quarterback that's going to break the record for starts. But I kind of, in my head, I'm still kind of waiting for him, like, to get that signature victory, right? That big victory. He wins a ton, right? There's no doubt about that. How poised are they when you put those things together to get it done? And do you think his critics are waiting for that moment?
Well, I don't think he cares about his critics. I'll start with that.
Oh, you can definitely tell.
Yeah, and not disrespectfully, but like he's very connected to what matters most in the program, and it's as he would say, connection, growth, toughness, and sacrifice. And I love those DNA traits about their team because they are really reflected by the players. Dylan Gabriel been there 8 months. I mean this. At the Elite 11, I see the best quarterbacks in America coming out of high school. And then oftentimes they come back as counselors. Dylan Gabriel came this summer, and I've never seen a guy be able to connect with people better than he has. And when you talk to the staff at Oregon, I did their spring game. I'm heading there in a couple of days for their opener. His DNA traits around that it factor are, they're the greatest I have seen, right? Tua was sitting in pole position. Jameis Winston was number 2. Those are just a couple of the guys that I've seen that can really sync and connect to anybody. Dylan jumped them both, man. I mean, he is really that type of player. And then you look at the roster, they're loaded. So, yeah, can they get a signature win? I think that'll be decided by probably a lot of people outside of the facility, right? Like, and I know what you're talking about. Can they beat Washington? Can they beat an Ohio State at home? Can they get one of those big time wins? We all get what that means. And I also think that, we got the gift of, we've watched a head coach evolve in real time.
Yeah.
Right. He's an aggressive coach by nature. He said it many times. Yeah, I would have taken back going for it on fourth down or whatever the situation is. Like, we're watching a guy evolve. That's really cool to me at one of the premier places. And it's not like he's evolving and they're 8-4, right? He's evolving and they win 11 games. So I'm excited. I think he takes up all of the oxygen that Harbaugh and Saban have left.
Yeah.
I think he is going to be the face of this sport. I don't think the Ducks are going anywhere. I think that they have the competitive depth to play Ohio State 3 times this year, right? Regular season, Big Ten title, national title. Like, we'll see how the draw is in the playoff, of course. But this thing is legit. How do they deal with the health, injuries, all the things that are a season, the 3 plays a game that are really critical? I don't know. I mean, I'm not saying they're going to win every one, but they are different than majority of teams. And I'd imagine if I went to Georgia or Alabama, I'd feel the same way after leaving Eugene.
Man, I would love to be evolving at 8-4. Wouldn't that be a dream?
Well, that's what we're shooting for here in Nebraska. So that's the goal.
Yogi, let me switch over to the other Southern California team. As we, heard from Deshaun Foster, there's 2 teams in LA, UCLA and USC, in case people forgot. I have no idea what to expect from UCLA this year. Like, can you give me any guidance? Because I've looked at them every which way to Sunday. I have no idea what to expect.
Yeah, that's fair. That's why you bring me on, brother.
Yes.
That's
why I'm here. That's why you're here.
Yeah. Well, I'll be over there later today. So I'll give a little more insight. But you look at the schedule: Hawaii and Indiana to kick it off with a bye in between. They got a shot to go 2-0, and then here comes the gauntlet. That is just the gauntlet of gauntlets. At LSU and Death Valley, that's a challenge. Oregon at home, that's a challenge, and at Penn State, that's a challenge. I think those 3 games are going to dictate the season, and not from a win-loss standpoint, but from a health standpoint. I mean, those are physical games. I think when I look at a UCLA team, what do I see? I see a head coach who I'm a huge fan of Deshaun Foster.
I am too. I am too.
Okay, cool. I think a lot of people are. It was so unique in how he got the opportunity. And I love that because that happens, right? That happens with Dabo Swinney. Like, it was unique in terms of how he got the opportunity. There's certain jobs that just the timing can kind of impact the hire. Jed Fish in Washington, like it's just one of those unique ones. Same deal here. He has got a really detailed philosophy around things that matter most in his program. He calls it DRE, discipline, respect, and enthusiasm. And again, he's a son of a military man. You watch him play, you watch him coach running backs for years, like I did. That was reflected in the room. Now it's really a part of the team. And I think all 3 of those have different spokes that come out of it. One, let's just talk about the enthusiasm. He had over 2,000 recruits in spring alone walk through the facility during spring football. He had a jamboree on a Friday night at UCLA where thousands of people and fans and families came out with food trucks and music, but also really good football. I say all that of like, he's really opened up LA to the community of LA. Right? UCLA is a public institution. He's trying to make LA the school in LA. Not easy when SC is the one across town, but also it should be a part of that conversation, right? He was around UCLA when they beat SC over 12 or 10 straight times. Like, UCLA has run this city as well, and he's not afraid to talk that way. Okay, then you go to the acumen of the program, and you look at the coordinators. I'm a huge fan of Akaika Malloy, first-time defensive coordinator for UCLA, but played at UW, trained by Chris Peterson. Like, he's a special guy who knows how to connect to players. And I think they get the most out of him running a very similar defense than what they ran a year ago. And then you go to Eric Bieniemy. And this is a guy who's long been proven at the NFL ranks. We know what the NFL can be. And we saw that last year with them and the Commanders, kind of an uphill battle. But after being at practice and talking to players, these guys really love both schemes. I think they also have some players. Nathan Garbers, to me, what started a lot of schools in the Big Ten. Their receiving core is talented. Maliki Matavao at tight end will be a household name by the end of the season. Defensively, Femi Oladejo will be that guy that just climbs up the draft boards. And they got a couple other players like Jay Toia on the interior defensive line that would start everywhere. Their problem or their challenge is going to be the depth. Mm-hmm. They don't have the competitive depth of Oregon, Ohio State, Penn State. and I'd even argue SC right now. That's just a fact. That's why I go to those 3 games. Like, can they get through those games, right? Because they're going to fight tooth and nail, and who knows how they shake out. But to me, it's about being able to survive those, because the rest of the schedule, they're all winnable games. They're all winnable games. So I don't know how they shake out from those 3 games, but I'm hopeful for them. I hope they win. And I think people need to remember they've won 8, 9, and 8 games the last 3 years.
And quietly have ran the football pretty well.
Yeah, and you don't think they're going to run it again, right, with Deshaun Foster and Bieniemy? So we'll see. We'll see how it shakes out. But I think they should be given a little bit more play than I think what they're receiving right now in the preseason.
All right, just a couple minutes left here, Yogi. I got to pick your brain on the relationship. And we know that there's a pre-existing one between Chip and Ryan Day, and there's some respect there, having been a teacher-pupil. How do you think that relationship coexists in Columbus?
Oh, it's going to flourish, man. Look out. Like, here come the Buckeyes, man. It's going to be awesome. Those 2 guys are, to your point, connected, coached them way back in the day in college. I've been around those 2, and they've been together, off the field. I was at practice earlier in August. This thing is going to be fluid. This thing is going to be flush. I mean, you look at the weapons they have and the backfield they have, the defense they have, the wideouts they have, like, and on and on and on. As I was watching practice, I kept trying to comp our 05 USC team that lost to Texas in the title game. And all right, who's better? Like, with Cushing at the edge, or this guy at the edge? At Dwayne Jarrett at wideout, or as a freshman, how about Jeremiah Smith? Like, you just start going back and forth. This running back crew versus Thunder and Lightning with Reggie and Lindell. And it's comparable. It might be better. I mean, it might be the best team we've ever seen. And the thing that I love the most about both of those 2 men that you referenced is they are really selfless. And they've got a tremendous amount of belief in what they do. And I think they've got a lot of humility around the craft. Like, I get you might go, right, hey, remember when he yelled at Lou Holtz after the game last year? I get all that. But their competitive fire and the way that their teams reflect their personalities stands out to me. And then my last thing, when talking to Ryan Day about this team, because on one hand, there's a lot of pressure, right? Clearly, guys decided to come back. They didn't come back for free. And they also came back with a certain mission in mind: beating Michigan, winning the league championship, and winning the whole darn thing. I love what he said to me about how they view it. And he goes, we don't look at it as depression. The way we talk about it is opportunity. Like, what an opportunity to represent these colors, this logo, these teams, this university. What an opportunity to do something special with guys that would normally, be first-round picks. And that's how Coach Carroll talked about our teams and opportunities at SC. As the pressure mounted and you're trying to win 3 straight national titles, same type of vernacular, very similar temperament. So I'm in on the Buckeyes. Who knows between them and the Ducks, but those 2 teams have, again, I keep saying it, but they really stood out among everybody else. Doesn't mean it's easy. They still are 18-22. They still have to have, challenging road games against lesser opponents in hostile environments. Like, all those things will challenge their teams. I don't know if either one are good enough to go truly flawless in the regular season, but God, I can't wait to watch them compete.
That's our guy, Yogi Roth from the Big Ten Network. Yogi, we appreciate it, and hopefully we'll catch up with you again soon.
Thanks, Yogi.
Yeah, I need some help. I'll be there in 3 weeks, guys. I don't know anything.
I got you.
Last time I was in Lincoln was a memory your listeners don't want to go down. I'll runs in 2007.
I'll send you a message on Twitter.
Okay.
All right, buddy.
See you guys.
Thanks.